The night air was electric. The lights dimmed. A single white spotlight pierced through the darkness, landing on a lone figure in a shimmering jacket. The crowd, 72,000 voices strong, held its breath as the first beat of Billie Jean echoed across Wembley Stadium. You could feel the pulse of the world's heartbeat syncing with his. The king of pop stood center stage, motionless, head bowed beneath his fedora. Then, with one sudden tilt, the crowd erupted into an ocean of screams, and yet, no one in that vast sea of people could have predicted what was about to happen next. A moment so raw, so human, that even today, decades later, it's remembered as one of the most emotional scenes in concert history. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss another untold story. July 15, 1988, London. The Bad World Tour had already become legendary, breaking records across continents. But on this particular night, Destiny had prepared something unscripted, something that would reveal more about Michael Jackson than any lyric or moonwalk ever could. As the bass line thumped and Michael Jackson slid effortlessly across the stage, security stood tense at the edges. They'd seen fans faint, scream, and cry, but nothing could prepare them for what was about to unfold. Somewhere in the middle of the front row, a 19-year-old girl named Sarah Mitchell was trembling. She'd saved for over a year to buy that ticket. To her, Michael wasn't just a superstar. He was light, hope, escape. And tonight, standing only a few feet away, something inside her snapped. The music, the emotion, the nearness, it was too much. When Michael spun and hit that iconic pose, Sarah climbed the barrier. For a split second, everything froze, then she ran, through the blur of flashing lights and deafening screams. Her body moved on instinct, past startled guards, past the first layer of security, right onto the stage where Michael Jackson stood performing Billie Jean. The stadium gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Every security guard lunged forward. Michael turned, time slowed. The moment their eyes met, hers filled with tears, his calm and steady. Something unspoken passed between them. She wasn't a threat. She wasn't angry. She was simply overwhelmed. A lost soul reaching for the person who had given her strength through his music. Guards were seconds away from grabbing her, but then, in a move no one expected, Michael raised his hand. A silent command. The guards froze as he took one step forward. The music kept playing, but the world felt quiet. Then, in front of 72,000 people, Michael Jackson opened his arms. Sarah collapsed into his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. The stadium fell silent. No screams, no noise, just the echo of human connection. Michael held her, one hand on her back, another holding the mic down by his side. He didn't push her away. He didn't call for help. He simply stood there, letting her cry, his chin resting gently on her hair. It was as if time itself bowed to the moment. When Sarah finally looked up, her face streaked with tears, Michael smiled softly. Without a word, he handed her his white sequined glove, the same one he had worn for Billie Jean. The gesture was quiet, but it spoke louder than any lyric. "You're safe now." Cameras captured the entire scene. Fans in the front rows were crying. Even the tough-looking security guards turned their faces away, some wiping their eyes. In that instant, Michael Jackson reminded the world that beneath the glitz, the fame, and the legend, there was a man whose greatest power wasn't his voice or his dance, but his compassion. When the guards finally escorted Sarah gently off the stage, the audience erupted, not in hysteria, but in heartfelt applause. The kind that carries gratitude. The kind that says, "Thank you for reminding us what humanity looks like." Michael waited, still as stone, until she disappeared backstage. Then, slowly, he lifted his mic, placed the fedora back on his head, and whispered, "I love you." The crowd screamed, but it wasn't just excitement, it was love returning home. And then he danced, but if you looked closely, really closely, you could see the shimmer in his eyes. That night, for a brief heartbeat of time, Michael Jackson wasn't just the king of pop. He was the king of hearts. The story didn't end there. Backstage, Sarah was trembling. She thought she'd be arrested. Instead, one of Michael's team members handed her a towel, a bottle of water, and whispered, "He asked us to make sure you're okay." She couldn't believe it. Michael had told security not to press charges, not to remove her harshly, not to shame her. He simply wanted to make sure she was safe. That's who he was. For all the noise, the headlines, the controversies, moments like this revealed the truth. Michael Jackson was, at his core, a soul who understood pain. He saw it in others because he carried it himself. Later that night, after the show, a member of his crew reportedly asked, "Why did you let her stay, Michael? She could have hurt you." Michael simply smiled and said, "Because she needed a hug more than I needed protection." Those words echoed through the halls of Wembley like a prayer. It wasn't about being untouchable. It was about being human. That's the side of Michael Jackson the world rarely saw, but it's the one that mattered most. Behind every record-breaking tour and every sold-out stadium was a man who never forgot what it meant to be loved and misunderstood at the same time. The footage of that night spread slowly in the years that followed, passed among fans like a secret treasure. Many said they could feel the love radiating even through the grainy VHS tape. Others admitted that it made them cry, not because of the spectacle, but because of the purity of it. In a world built on performance, this was something real, and if you look back at that era, 1988, Michael was at the absolute height of his fame. Yet, even surrounded by walls of security, by endless fame and pressure, he made the choice to see one girl as a person, not a problem. That's why, decades later, his legacy endures not only through Thriller, Smooth Criminal, or Beat It, but through quiet moments like this, because legends aren't defined only by the noise they make, but by the silence they fill with kindness. For many who were there that night, something changed. They came to see an icon but left having witnessed a miracle. And Sarah, whose life would never be the same, later said in an interview, "He didn't just hug me. He healed me." She went on to volunteer at shelters for abused youth, inspired by that brief, life-altering moment. "I realized," she said, "if Michael could forgive me for scaring him in front of 72,000 people, then maybe I could forgive myself for a lot of things too." That's the power of empathy. The kind that Michael Jackson carried into every song, every performance, every beat of his life. The same man who moonwalked into history was also the one who knelt to hug a crying girl on stage. He showed the world that greatness isn't about distance, it's about connection. As the years went by, fans continued to talk about that night. Every retelling came with tears. Every memory carried warmth. Wembley became more than a venue. It became sacred ground for those who witnessed that spontaneous act of grace. To this day, many fans call it, the hug heard around the world. And perhaps, that's exactly what it was, a reminder that even in the middle of chaos, compassion can take the stage. When Michael left the spotlight years later, that moment remained one of the purest reflections of who he truly was. The performer, yes, but also the protector. The man who could make 72,000 people cry not with a song, but with silence. And maybe, that's what Michael Jackson always wanted us to remember, not the scandals, not the fame, but the love. The unspoken language of kindness that transcends fear, fame, and time itself. So tonight, if you close your eyes and play Billie Jean, imagine that moment. The lights dim. The crowd breathes as one. The beat drops. And somewhere, in the echoes of Wembley Stadium, two souls meet on a stage, one in need of love, one ready to give it. That's not just music, that's humanity. In the years after that unforgettable night at Wembley, the story of Michael Jackson and the girl who ran onto his stage became a whisper among fans, a legend carried through grainy recordings, late-night talk shows, and heart-to-heart conversations between people who believed in something bigger than fame. It wasn't about the music anymore. It was about humanity revealed under blinding lights. For Michael, that moment wasn't just another concert memory. Those who worked closest to him said that he spoke of it often, quietly, humbly, as if it was something sacred. One of his backup singers, Sheryl Crow, later said in an interview, "Michael had this way of seeing people, not just crowds. When that girl came on stage, everyone panicked, but Michael just knew. He felt things deeper than most of us could understand." He carried that night with him like a hidden treasure, proof that love could reach across barriers, stages, and fear. Even when tabloids tried to paint him as strange, isolated, or unreachable, those who truly looked saw something else, a man who never stopped believing in connection. Behind the scenes, Michael often replayed footage of that show, the moment he opened his arms, the tears in Sarah's eyes, the stunned silence of 72,000 people. Once, a sound engineer remembered hearing him whisper, almost to himself, "That's what music is for." And perhaps that's what defined Michael Jackson more than anything, not the perfection, not the fame, but the faith that music could heal the human heart. As his career continued to soar, he carried that same empathy into his work. Songs like "Heal the World," "Man in the Mirror," and "Will You Be There" weren't just hits, they were promises. Promises that the love he gave that night on stage would keep reaching people long after the applause faded. When fans talk about Michael now, they rarely speak of the awards first. They speak of the moments, the soft-spoken interviews, the hospital visits with sick children, the quiet donations he made without press coverage. And among all those stories, the Wembley incident remains a shining thread in the tapestry of his life, proof that even at the height of his power, he never forgot how to listen to the heartbeat of another soul. Before we go deeper, make sure you've subscribed and turned on the notification bell, because stories like these deserve to be felt, not just heard. Sarah Mitchell's life after that night was never the same. She spent years avoiding interviews, uncomfortable with the sudden attention. She wasn't seeking fame, she had already found her miracle. But when she finally spoke publicly decades later, her voice trembled with gratitude. "I didn't plan it," she said. "I don't even remember deciding to run. One second I was crying in the front row, the next I was on stage. I thought he'd be angry, or scared. But when he opened his arms, everything stopped." He didn't see a crazy fan. He saw a broken girl. And that changed me. Her eyes welled with tears as she recalled the warmth of that embrace, the way he whispered something she would never forget. He said, "You're loved. Don't ever forget that." Those words became her compass. Sarah later started a foundation for youth mental health, helping thousands who felt invisible, just as she once had. "I wanted to pass that love forward," she said. "Because that's what Michael taught me, love doesn't stop at the stage. It lives on." Michael never bragged about it. He never told the press. To him, it wasn't an act of charity or showmanship. It was simply the right thing to do. And maybe that's why the moment feels so timeless, because it wasn't meant to be remembered. It was meant to be felt. As years turned into decades, the footage resurfaced online, restored in high definition, sparking millions of views and emotional comments. Young fans who were born long after 1988 found themselves crying over a man they never met. "I didn't know who Michael Jackson really was until I saw this," one comment read. "He wasn't just performing. He was loving." Even now, digital noise fills the internet, stories, rumors, opinions. But then you see that clip, Michael holding a stranger as if she were family, the crowd hushed, the lights glimmering like stars around them. And for a fleeting moment, all the noise disappears. That's what Michael Jackson did best. He silenced the chaos with compassion. There's something almost divine about how that night unfolded, no choreography, no rehearsal, just instinct and love. In that instant, he reminded everyone that being a king wasn't about power. It was about grace. One of the stage crew later recalled how, after the show, Michael stood alone backstage for a few minutes, his eyes distant. When someone asked if he was all right, he smiled faintly and said, "She needed that moment more than I needed the show." Those who heard him knew it wasn't a line, it was truth. That he always said he wanted to heal the world. And maybe that night, he did, one embrace at a time. Every legend has a defining moment, a heartbeat that echoes through eternity. For Michael Jackson, July 15, 1988, was that heartbeat. The night the music stopped, and love took center stage. He would go on to play hundreds more shows, perform for millions more people, but those who were at Wembley swear that nothing ever compared. There was something in the air that night, a spirit, a vibration, a tenderness that could never be repeated. People still return to Wembley, decades later, standing quietly in the vastness of that stadium, imagining the scene, the lights, the music, the miracle. Some say you can almost feel it, as if that moment never truly ended, because moments like that don't fade. They live on in memory, in melody, in the silent corners of the heart. Michael Jackson once said, "When I perform, I want people to feel love. I want them to see the beauty that lives in all of us." And that's exactly what he did that night. That he turned chaos into compassion, fear into forgiveness. A security breach into a symphony of love. That's not just artistry, that's legacy. So the next time you hear Billie Jean playing, whether on a radio, in a club, or through your headphones, listen closely. Beneath the beat, beneath the glitter, beneath the legend, there's a heartbeat that still whispers, "You're loved." Don't ever forget that. That's the true untold story of Michael Jackson. Not just the performer who made the world dance, but the man who made it feel again. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in the power of kindness, and subscribe for more timeless stories of love, music, and humanity. Because as long as we keep telling them, the magic never dies.